Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Rochelle Kumodera. These are your headlines for tonight.
Why did Gampaha suddenly experience flooding? Newsfirst dives into the issues. Risk of landslides prompt residents of Puakpitia to relocate to safer areas. Aksa's son files police complaint alleging assault on father by MP Mahinda Nanda. Alutgamage denies allegations. Supreme Court determines the electricity bill is unconstitutional, stating it violates the fundamental rights to justice. Indian general election results are in. Modi's BJP-led coalition ahead, but loses hope on expected majority.
What caused the sudden flooding in Gampaha last night? Newsfirst conducted an in-depth inquiry on this issue today.
On Monday night, close to the Gampaha District Hospital, a sudden deluge inundated the city. The hospital's 3 entrances were blocked by the swiftly flowing water. Newsfirst's visit to the Gampaha town earlier in the day revealed the extent of the flooding. Key areas including the Gampaha Jail bus stand, Gampaha Colombo bus stand, Hospital Junction and Gampaha Minuangoda New Road were submerged. Surprisingly, previously unaffected locations also experienced flooding this time. The office of the Gampaha Senior Superintendent of Police was among the flooded sites. By afternoon, the Gampaha railway station and bus stand remained underwater. Even the Daralua Gampaha railway tracks faced inundation. Despite the challenges, the water level in the city is gradually subsiding.
This is the Gampaha city. This is not any lake or any river. The devastating rains that pummeled to the city within the past few days, turning the Attanugulu Oya into a raging current, had turned the neighborhoods, the homes and the lives of the people destructed. Not only the homes and the lives of the people, but also the crucial infrastructure such as the Gampaha Hospital Police Station and the railway station had been disrupted.
Residents of Gampaha shared their thoughts on the situation.
දැන් මම මේ ගම්පහට ඇවිල්ලා අවුරුදු 55ක් වෙනවා. මේ පළවෙනි වතාවට තමයි මේ වගේ වතුරක් දැක්කේ. මම හිතන්නේ අර ප්‍රයිවට් පන්ති කරන අය ඒ බිම් කොටස් සේරම ගොඩ කරලා ඒවයි බිල්ඩින් ගහලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වතුර තමයි මේ ටවුන් එකට එන්නේ.
හයිවේ එකේ හේන් යනවා පන්ති වල තියෙන ඒවා ඔක්කොම පුරවල ඒවා මේව කොල්ල හදලා තියෙන්නේ. වතුර සබාදරුමින් යන පැත්ත වතුර යන්න විදියක් නැහැනේ. මාගේ කියන්නේ ඔක්කොම බෝක්කු ඒවා මේව ඔක්කොම වහලා නේන ඔක්කොම ගොඩ කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ අවුරුදු 15ක් විතර ඇති ගොඩ වෙන්න අරගෙන ඒවා මම වෙලා. ඇලවල් එකක් වන්නේ නැහැ මම පැත්තේ මේ බිල්ඩින් ගහලා තියෙන්නේ. ගොඩ කරලා ඉඳන් කුඹුරු ගොඩ කරලා වතුර බහලා ගියේ එක තැනක්වත් නැහැනේ.
This is what the Department of Irrigation had to say.
ස්වාභාවික කාරණා තමයි විශාල ලෙස මේ මොහොතේ ඔබ ගම්පහ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ අත්දකින
Unnatural factors mostly led to the floods in the Gampaha district. 2 rivers flow through the Gampaha district, Attanugala Oya and Uruwal Oya. Although they are 2 river basins, they act as one during a flood situation. This is because the low-lying areas of these 2 river basins are at very low levels. As a result, when the upper catchment areas of the river basins experience high rainfall, these river basins don't act in the same way as others.
පවතින්නේ මේ තත්ත්වය නිසා මේ ගංගාඩෝණී ඉහළ ප්‍රදේශවලට අධික වර්ෂාපතන තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වුණොත් මේ ගංගාඩෝණී හැසිරෙන්නේ වෙනත් ගංගාඩෝණී වගේ නෙවෙයි.
Professor Lalit Rajapaksa of the University of Moratuwa, who recently conducted research on Attanugala Oya, says natural causes as well as human activities have led to this situation. The professor points out that due to the rains in the areas around Attanugala Oya in the past 10 days, the underground water level had risen. He says that in such a case, a large amount of water moved through the stream during the rainfall of more than 200 millimeters. Attanugala Oya flows with a big slope from the beginning to Gampaha And from Gampaha to the lagoon through the Dryala Canal, the flow to the lagoon is at a low slope, so when a large amount of water arrives at the same time, the waterway is blocked and it overflows. The professor points out that if the canals and drainage systems in Gampaha city were in place to drain the wastewater, such damage would not have occurred. A few years ago, there were about 8 canals to drain the water in Gampaha city, but now there are only 2 canals. He points out that some new developments in the city are also harmful to the ecosystem. Professor Lalit Rajapaksa said that the damage caused by natural water has increased due to the reasons created by man, such as the lack of an ecosystem to absorb water into the soil, the blockage of canals and drain systems, and the development projects that have not been completed for many years. Many homes in Angoda, Balagama and Kalanimulla remain submerged due to the overflowing of the Kalani River. Some residents had to evacuate their houses last night. Newsfirst correspondents observed the traffic on the Ambathale Old Road and Avisavela Road has come to a standstill. Displaced individuals from the Ambathale, Kotikavatta and Kalanimulla sought refuge at the Kotikavatta Saranankara Viharaya and Galvana Purana Viharaya. Medicines for rat fever were distributed through the Gotatua Medical Officer of Health's office. In Kotikavatta, the Galtotua Road, Koratua Road, Malpura Road and the 175 bus route were flooded. Normal life in areas like Velevatta in Vallampitiya and Kalani Nadigama, Jakotua, as well as Gothami Mawatha were disrupted due to flood waters. Army teams were deployed this morning to assist affected communities. Lower Hangwalla, Sivalivatta, Valauvatta, Godapura Godalla, Iriagolla and other low-lying regions in the Sithavaka Divisional Secretariat remain inundated. The road from Kaduwala to Vallampitiya was flooded, leading to floodwaters in the Kaduwala town as well. Newsfirst correspondents reported that 3 temporary camps have been set up in Hanwalla to support the affected communities. In Colombo, the city's voters elect 20 members of parliament. Despite promises and implemented projects, flooding continues to cause suffering for residents, especially when the Kalani River overflows. While natural disasters cannot be prevented, global advancements offer methods to mitigate damage and alleviate people's hardships. So, doesn't the people suffering reveal that all efforts taken to date have failed?
Solutions to address floods were proposed today.
The President engaged in an observation tour in the Kulanawa Divisional Secretariat. A few decisions were made. The Tri-Forces, civil organizations and other government institutions will work together to overcome this situation. Additionally, a decision was made to provide the necessary financial provisions to the people who have been affected by floods in the Kulanawa region and also other regions. A decision was also made to demolish all unnecessary constructions in Kulanawa. Clogged drains, especially from Orugoduwatta to Avisavela, will be developed with foreign funds. Following the instructions of the President, the Ministry of Highways, the Road Development Authority and engineers with the assistance of the Army are collectively working to rectify the issues.
Due to elevated water levels in the lower stretches of the Nilwala River, the Irrigation Department has reported that the stone bunt is experiencing overflow, reaching approximately 1 meter in height. Newsfirst correspondents have observed that this overflow affects roughly 100 meters from the embankment. This morning, the Irrigation Department issued a red notice for the next 48 hours, highlighting numerous villages at risk, including West Galpamuna, Sultanagoda, Attudava, East Watagedara, Palatuwa, Unella, Dematahettigoda, Tudava, Vevahamanduwa, Godagama, Kanattagoda and Maduruduwa.
අපිට මහජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලන්න තියෙන්නේ අනවශ්‍ය විදිහට මේ ගම්වතුර තත්වයෙන් ඒක විනෝදයක් බවට පත් කරගන්න කටයුතු කරන්න එපා. ඒ වගේම මේ තරුණ ළමයි වතුරට බහින එක අනාරක්ෂිත ස්ථාන නරඹන්න යන එක පුළුවන් තරම් දුරට පාලනය කරන්නේ දෙමාපියෝ කටයුතු කරන්න ඕන.
Although water levels have receded in the upper reaches of the Nilwala River, such as Moratua Pitabeddara Akuressa, several areas including Kadduwa Tihagoda and Piliduwa are experiencing a gradual rise in water levels. Reports indicate that the Hakmana-Mathura road has been submerged in floodwaters from the Bandattara area, with homes in Malimbada and Hakmana also affected. Overflowing water from the stone embankment is coursing towards Sultanagoda via Godagama and the Jayanti bridge, while Nadugala is among the inundated areas. Due to the overflow of the Ginganga, regions such as Ganegama, West Dodangoda and Telikanda have been severely impacted. Roads from Baddegama to Dodangoda, Agalia and Nagoda are submerged, disrupting flow of traffic. The rise in the Gin River's water level has led to the inundation of numerous houses along the Baddegama Hikkadua Old Road, with reports indicating rising water levels in Baddegama Old Town since last afternoon. While floodwaters have receded in the Gaul Hiniduma area today, significant property damage has occurred.
අවුරුදු ගානක් හම්බ කරපුවා විනාඩි දෙකකින් ඉවරයි ඔක්කොම. පැය භාගයක් කියන අය ඔක්කොම වෙන්නේ.
ඒ වුණාට දැන් මේව ඔක්කොම විනාශ වෙලා නැතිනාස් කියලා මේ වගේ ඉන්නේ අපි. අපි කවුරුවත් ගෙදර හිටියේ නැහැ. මාත් ගිහිල්ලා අම්මලංගොඩ කොටු වෙලා ගෙදර කවුරුවත් හිටියෙත් නැහැ. ඒ නැති වෙලාවේ අවට මිනිස්සු තමයි පුළුවන් ටික හරි චුට්ටක් බේරගත්තේ.
Mapalagama is another area currently submerged, while Avisavilla, Puakpitiya and Egodagama have seen receding water levels but extensive property damage.
අපි මුළු ජීවිත කාලෙම හම්බ කරපුවා ඉවරයි. අපිට දැන් ඉඳින්න තුන්නේ නැහැ. සුද්ධ කරලා අර කුස්සිය කඩාන වෙලා යන්න টয়ලට් එකක්වත් නැහැ. බොණ්ඩ වතුර ටිකක් නැහැ. හම්බ කරුවා තේරෙම ඉවරයි. දුකේන ස්ටාර්ට් කර මේ වහලවල දිවේ ඔක්කොම තිබිච්ච මුළු සේරම ඉවරයි. අපි අනුන්ගේ ගෙවල් අපේ අයියාලා ගෙදර ගිහින් උඩාට ගිහින් බුදියෙන් ඉන්නේ. ඒක දිගට තුනක් හොදලා වේලෙන් දාගත්තා වේල ගන්න කියලා. මොනවක් කරන්නද?
Movement along the Ratnapura Kiriyalla and Ratnapura Panadura main roads came to a standstill as floodwaters from the Ilangoda area submerged it, halting traffic.
Now on to more news regarding the weather situation prevailing in the country. Residents of the Pahanagawa area in Puakpitiya Avisavela were evacuated due to the risk of landslides. The Sri Lanka Army also deployed troops to assist in the area.
Volunteer search and rescue operators were deployed by the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management Sri Lanka, or APAD Sri Lanka, to the Biagama zone. They assisted in flood relief efforts. Governor of the Western Province, Marshal of the Air Force, Roshan Gunatilaka said that all schools in the Western Province, except those still affected by floods and those that continue to operate as shelters, will reopen tomorrow. He said that instructions were given to first clean school premises before opening for academic activities. All schools in the Gaul and Mathura districts will remain closed tomorrow. In addition, all schools in the Ratnapura zone and schools located in Alapatha, Ayagama and Kalavan areas in the Nivitigala zone will remain closed tomorrow.
A video depicting an incident in which a young child is being assaulted has garnered widespread attention on social media.
Newsfirst investigated the underlying cause of this distressing event. Now, some of our viewers might find the following images disturbing, and therefore viewers' discretion is advised.
The Valioya police are on the hunt for the suspect, but no arrests have been made as of this afternoon. Meanwhile, the National Child Protection Authority has also initiated an investigation into the incident.
මේ බරපතල අමානුෂික පහර දීම අපේ රටේ නීතියට අනුව
This inhumane attack is a grave criminal offence under our country's law. According to Section 308 of the Penal Code Amendment Act, this incident qualifies as a serious crime punishable by a high court. Consequently, upon being informed of the incident yesterday, the National Child Protection Authority promptly intervened. The Law Enforcement Division contacted the relevant police station OIC to inquire about the progress of the investigation. The National Child Protection Authority has now received all official reports regarding the situation. If the general public experience or witness any such event, they must call the NCPA on our hotline 1929.
උපකාරක හදිසි දුරකථන මැතුමන්කට දැනුම් දෙන්න.
Geeta Kumara Singha, the State Minister of Women and Child Affairs, also commented.
I urge the police to locate this child and ensure his safety immediately. He cannot be left in the care of someone who possesses a threat to his well-being. We cannot predict what such an individual might do. Therefore, it is imperative that the police take swift action to protect this child. A complaint was filed with the Fort Police alleging that an assault by MP Mahindananda Alutgamage resulted in serious bodily harm to MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa. The complaint by the son of MP Gunathilaka alleged that his father's leg was broken following the assault by MP Alutgamage.
Now, parliamentarian Mahindananda Alutgamage in turn has strongly asserted that he was not involved in any such incident.
Following a meeting of the ruling party MPs at the President's office yesterday, an argument had reportedly occurred between MPs Mahindananda Alutgamage and Gunathilaka Rajapaksa. Today, the son of MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa filed a police complaint stating that his father, who was hospitalized after the incident, had to undergo surgery on his leg.
An argument had broken out at the group meeting. Following the group meeting, Mahindananda Alutgamage physically assaulted my father Gunathilaka Rajapaksa by grabbing him by the collar and striking him with his hand and foot. My father had fallen and a crack was reported on his knee. He had to undergo surgery and is in the ICU. Today, I lodged a formal complaint with the Fort Police regarding this incident.
Sri Lanka police elaborated on the matter.
At this time, we have only received a complaint from one party. Further evidence and statements are required before we can definitely determine the events that transpired. Based on the information available to us, it appears that the injuries resulted from a dispute.
මේ චෝදනාව ලබන්නේ මහින්දානන්ද අලුත්ගමගේ മന്ത്രിවරයා. ඔහුව මේ වෙනකොට අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීමක් කළා තියෙනවද? කොහොමද ඒ සම්බන්ධ විමර්ශන කටයුත්තක් කරනවද?
මෙතෙක් අත්අඩංගුවට
No arrests have been made thus far. Investigations are underway. MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa has sustained injuries, so appropriate legal measures will be taken within the relevant legal framework.
Newsfirst contacted MP Mahindananda Alutgamage regarding the incident. He categorically denied any involvement in an assault against MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa. According to Mahindananda Alutgamage, during a meeting of the ruling party MPs yesterday, MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa persistently accused him in relation to the Kandy District Development Committee's activities. He said that following the meeting, a heated argument ensued between the two, and MP Gunathilaka Rajapaksa fell down while nearby individuals attempted to mediate the heated situation.
India was in for a big surprise as the counting of votes for the 2024 Lok Sabha election began on Tuesday morning. The National Democratic Alliance, or the NDA, led by the Bharatiya Janata Party, was predicted to win by a comfortable majority.
The Congress, a part of the opposition India coalition, has given its best performance in the last decade.
A third term for Prime Minister Narendra Modi appears almost certain as the NDA hovered close to 300 seats. But the day belongs to the resurgent opposition, which performed way over the modest expectations raised by the exit polls. The BJP, which was aiming for 370 seats and set the NDA a target of 400 plus, appears to be running way behind, led down by Uttar Pradesh, which sends a whopping 80 lawmakers to the Lok Sabha. Around 5 p.m., the BJP is ahead on 241 seats, the NDA on 296. The India bloc is ahead on 228 seats, the Congress on 100. The BJP apple cart appears to have been upset by the heartland state of Uttar Pradesh, which has pushed the India bloc, Samajwadi Party and the Congress ahead in more than 40 of its 80 seats at 3 p.m. The BJP is in mid-30s. The BJP had swept Uttar Pradesh in 2014 and held off its ground in 2019. This time, most exit polls had predicted an edge for the party. Two of the other battleground states have also not gone the BJP's way. In Bengal, the party's big hope it could fare worse than 2019, leading in only 11 seats at 3 p.m. Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress appears to have recovered much of the lost ground and is ahead by 31 seats. The BJP's losses, as expected, are being offset from Odisha, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and to an extent Telangana. As with every election, the BJP unleashed its formidable election machinery early and launched a star-studded campaign that focused on development, economy and a vision for the 100-year anniversary of independence. Backing it up were the promises met, the scrapping of Article 370 and the construction of the Ayodhya Ram Temple. The big difference was the opposition's offensive against the ruling coalition, a long way from the lack of cohesiveness in 2019. Now, while the beginning was shaky and in parts patchy, the narrative on a change in constitution and scrapping of reservation made an impact. Voting was held for 543 Lok Sabha seats over 7 phases, which ended on Saturday. The majority mark is 272.
I think there are 3 major observations that can be made from the outcomes that we have so far. The first is that while it's true that this will be a historical win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because nobody after Jawaharlal Nehru has ever managed to serve India as Prime Minister for a 3rd term, while it's true that this historical victory does now seem confirmed, the BJP has not performed as well as it was predicted to. Almost all the exit polls have been startlingly wrong, and the BJP itself has not been able to create a government, a majority of 272 seats on its own, and will now have to rely on its regional partners as part of the NDA alliance to get past that magical number of 272 in the Indian Parliament. So in a sense, we will now look at Indian politics heading more towards the coalition era Indian politics that was quite common before Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. In terms of the impact itself, as far as India's engagement with the world, engagement with the region, and particularly engagement with Sri Lanka is concerned, there is not likely to be any great paradigm shift because of the election results. Because once he takes over as Prime Minister, which seems to be the most likely case, it will be a continuation of the existing policies. So the friendship with Sri Lanka, the rivalry with China, the rivalry with Pakistan, these are all likely to continue as they always have. And we must remember that as far as many of these foreign policy questions are concerned, right now in India, there is a certain level of all-party consensus. So regardless of who becomes the Prime Minister of India, India's position regarding Sri Lanka is not likely to change too dramatically at the moment. The Indo-Sri Lanka relationship right now is in a pretty strong position, and that will not change for anybody in the near future.
The Election Commission will be empowered to proclaim the date for the presidential election in 43 days.
Mahinda Deshapriya, the former chairman of the Election Commission, responded to the proposal by United National Party General Secretary Palitharange Bandara to delay the elections for 2 years and hold a referendum if necessary.
If
the official term is to be extended, there should be a constitutional amendment. He claims to win by holding a referendum. So why hold a referendum? Just win the presidential election directly. If the referendum fails, then a presidential election will have to be held anyway. A referendum cannot substitute for extending the term of office of the parliament or the president. To keep the current president in office, he must face the people. This proposal does not align with that principle. It seems the government has been educated on the constitutional provisions. However, I am not aware to what extent their understanding is.
The Supreme Court has determined that the Sri Lanka electricity bill is inconsistent with the constitution and that a special majority is required for its passage. Speaker Mahinda Yapa announced to Parliament that the said inconsistency shall, however, cease and can be passed by a simple majority if those clauses are amended as set out in the determination of the Supreme Court.
Now, according to the Supreme Court determination, the entities that will be set up after dividing Ceylon Electricity Board cannot operate as fully private companies, as it is determined that the Treasury Secretary should retain 51% of more of the shares in the successor companies.
The Sri Lanka Electricity Bill aims to establish independent corporate entities responsible for activities related to electricity generation, transmission, distribution, trade, supply and procurement already performed by the Ceylon Electricity Board as a single entity. The Supreme Court, upon considering the petitions that were filed challenging the Sri Lanka Electricity Bill, determined that the bill as a whole is inconsistent with Article 12(1) of the Constitution. Accordingly, the article in the Constitution which states that all persons are equal before the law and are entitled to the equal protection of the law is violated by the bill. The Supreme Court has determined that for the Sri Lanka Electricity Bill to be passed as a law, it shall only be passed by the special majority of Parliament. The Supreme Court has also recommended several amendments to the bill for it to be passed by a simple majority. It noted that the Secretary to the Treasury shall be initially allotted 100% of the shares in the successor companies proposed by the Sri Lanka Electricity Bill. It added that the Secretary to the Treasury may, with the prior approval of the Cabinet of Ministers and having followed a transparent and competitive bidding process as stipulated by law, dispose of any shares issued or allotted to him in any successor company only after the publication of the final transfer plan in the Gazette, provided that the Secretary to the Treasury shall, in disposing any shares, ensure that the government holds more than 50% of the shares of the company referred to. It added that the disposal of shares should be done after identifying the share capital, the management structure and the source of funds for the entities. The Supreme Court determined that preliminary allocation of all assets and preliminary valuation of such assets, including land, building, plant and machinery and other movable assets to successor companies prior to the appointed date, with such valuation being carried out by the chief valuer. The Supreme Court has determined that the provisions of this Act, other than the provisions of some sections, shall come into operation on such date as shall be appointed by the Minister by order published in the Gazette, provided that prior to making such order, the Minister shall be satisfied that the preliminary transfer plan, the National Electricity Policy including the National Tariff Policy and Annual Power Procurement Plan and the Long-Term Power System Development Plan have been prepared, approved and are in place in accordance with the provisions of this Act. It added that provided further that if no appointed date is published in the Gazette, even though the Minister is satisfied that the requirements have been met, the provisions of this Act, other than the provisions of some sections, shall come into operation immediately upon the expiry of 12 months from the date which the bill becomes an Act of Parliament.
We're all aware that the government lacks a two-thirds majority. That is the reality. I propose an alternative approach. Rather than raising these issues abruptly on Thursday, let's ensure that the deficiencies are formally addressed. By taking a moment to carefully examine and rectify these shortcomings, we can propel this initiative forward effectively. The determination notes that although it does not align with the constitutional framework, it can be ratified in Parliament through amendments. He is not aware of the amendments. As the government, we are fully prepared for the debate on the 6th and ready to secure the required votes. Opposition resistance is expected. We will defeat the attempts being made to sell off the country's energy sector. This act focuses on energy security in Sri Lanka. It was debated in this house that several bills were passed in this house contrary to the directions of the Supreme Court. After that is done, we have no legal right to go to the Supreme Court against it. It is now widely recognized that a bill challenging the equality of the people in this country has been introduced. The Supreme Court has not made a strong ruling in recent memory. Please allow me to speak without interruption. Every time he comes here, he seems to be barking like a dog. Once this bill is enacted, consumers in our country will reap the benefits which the opposition is attempting to thwart. We are not primitive beings. We understand the type of framework required for the future. Your point is valid. Our country cannot progress with a closed-minded mentality. Despite your acknowledgement, you, the head of the opposition, fails to see it. Just a short while ago, Sajith Premadasa emphasized the need for numerous changes in this area. We acknowledge it, and there are certain challenges that need to be addressed. I don't perceive any issues with this matter. We have set aside the 6th for the debate. I am unsure if the debate between MP Anurakumara Dissanayaka and the leader of the opposition Sajith Premadasa is scheduled for the 6th. It appears that they have avoided the debate on the electricity bill as well as the presidential poll. I believe the conclusion reached by the Supreme Court should be taken simply. It is widely recognized that energy is a crucial element in governing a nation, as even a country like India is heavily reliant on it. The renewable energy unit, which Adani sold to India, should currently be priced at 3 rupees in Sri Lanka. However, the agreed price stands at 13 rupees. The notion that this cost will be reduced is merely misconception. We need 2 days to debate this. The minister spoke of the primitive mentality. As per my view, when you are transitioning from the Rajapaksa camp to Ranil's camp, it may feel like you are out of the will. The amendments to the Online Safety Act were not implemented, and if not the court ruling, the situation would have been worse. Hence, the bill that has been tabled requires consideration. We do not follow the practice of donning formal attire in the company of Ranil Wickramasinghe and switching to traditional attire when in the presence of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Therefore, we kindly request that the financial management bill be postponed from Friday to the following week to allow for a 2-day debate. What's the rush? Are you afraid you would lose the vote? Before you do, please understand that in the next parliament we won't be able to introduce any bills because questionable persons will be there. Do you think we should hurry and pass these bills now because of that? There are 255 members in parliament. Look at the list of speeches. I don't understand what they are paying for us.
Chief incumbent of the Mihintale Rajamahaviharya says that a sum of 5 million rupees allocated by the government for the Mihintale Poson celebrations should be directed to those affected by floods.
The government says that 5 million rupees was allocated for the Poson celebrations. You can't just get away saying that. That is what they are planning on doing. The times where we were deceived by such acts are no more. The general public don't fall for such acts either. Dedicate this to the people who have been affected by the floods. The 3 armed forces are tirelessly working to help those affected by the floods. Therefore, the country salutes them.
Litra announced price revisions to their LP gas products.
Earlier today, Litra Gas reduced prices of LP gas products with effect from midnight. The 12.5 kilogram cylinder was reduced by 150 rupees to 3,790 rupees. A 5 kilogram cylinder was reduced by 60 rupees to 1,522 rupees. The 2.3 kilogram cylinder was reduced by 28 rupees to 712 rupees.
The Italian Republic Day in honor of the 78th anniversary of the inception of the Italian Republic was celebrated in Colombo.
Republic Day of Italy, celebrating the 78th anniversary of the inception of the Italian Republic, an evening showcasing highlights of the nation's food and culture, was held at Villa Roma, Colombo 7 on the 2nd of June. Despite the heavy rains that affected Colombo throughout Sunday, around 250 guests, including ministers, parliamentarians, representatives of the world of business, entertainment, culture, the diplomatic corps and the Italian community participated in the event. The ambassador of Italy to Sri Lanka and Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa emphasized on the bilateral relations between the two countries.
Tonight, I would like to highlight the contribution which is given to the growth of our bilateral cooperation through the work and investment of those Italian companies and those Italian nationals who have decided to work and invest in Sri Lanka in different sectors. They not only contribute to the economic growth, but also to people ties and act as a powerful bridge between the two countries. Italy is progressively paying more and more attention to this region of the world. And in our capacity of members of the European Union and of the G7 group, we are committing to a stronger presence in the area. The finalization of the MOUs that we have currently under negotiation will help a lot with this regard.
The warm relationship between our two countries has continued to grow over the years, both bilaterally and multilaterally. Sri Lanka wishes to engage more closely Italy in the framework of IORA as a dialogue partner. We welcome the launch of the Italy IORA platform and engagement in sectors of synergy, including the blue economy, climate change and sustainable development.
The catering, curated by an Italian chef who arrived in Colombo for the occasion, included a menu of Italian dishes and wines that was particularly appreciated by the guests.
Sri Lanka commenced its 2024 T20 Cricket World Cup campaign yesterday. In its first match, Sri Lanka lost to South Africa by 6 wickets. At the conclusion of the match, skipper Wanithu Hasaranga provided an explanation regarding the defeat and the game plan for future matches.
We cannot comment of the next match. We haven't played on these wickets. Our strength is bowling. That is the reason why we wanted to bat first, put some runs on the board and then put pressure on them with our bowling. We won many of our previous T20 matches when we bowled second. That is a decision that we took after discussing with the team and considering our strengths. But we saw that even though we bowled second, we were able to put pressure on them. We bowled 16 overs for them to score 70 runs.
Meanwhile, Western and Hindustan Times raised concerns over the quality of the Nassau County cricket pitch. Veteran cricketer Irfan Pathan, veteran commentator Harsha Bogle and many cricketing specialists have expressed their dismay regarding the conditions of the Nassau County pitch. They point out that this pitch is not a suitable pitch to play an international cricket match.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV 149.
Thank you for watching. Good night.